Kam Pringle just hit the transfer portal, and Clemson fans are buzzing about bringing him in. But I'll tell you right now, Clemson doesn't need him, and we'll talk about it right here on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer of Locked On Clemson, part-time host and producer over on 105.5 FM The Roar. Thank you so much for listening to Locked On Clemson, your first listen every day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you're new to the show, make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You know how we do it here on Locked On. Exclusive Clemson content Monday through Friday, every single week. And don't forget to follow me in between episodes over on X at The Morgan T Show, where we can talk about, all things Clemson or piloting or whatever you want to talk about. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's Gametime. Big news coming out of South Carolina is that Kam Pringle is no longer part of the Gamecocks because he has entered his name into the transfer portal. And a lot of fans have messaged me over on X and have reached out and said, I think that Clemson needs to get Kam Pringle. He was a big in-state offensive line guy that we needed to go after, and we went after hard, and he ended up choosing South Carolina. Not only that, but Josiah Thompson picked South Carolina in that same class. So Clemson had two of the top offensive linemen in the state on their recruiting board, big-time targets, and lost both of them, kind of tragically, if you will, because, everybody, I think, including myself, wants to see their team land their in-state guys, and especially their best in-state guys. But it didn't work out in that class. And, a lot of times offensive linemen, or if they are in closer proximity to South Carolina, Clemson's going to struggle to win those battles there. And it's not because they're a bad team or they're losing the state per se. It's just that, depending on where someone grew up, you really, and you know how it is as a fan, you're not going to change your mindset. Your family's not going to change who they pull for. And so when these players are brought up in closer proximity to Clemson, in a lot of cases, they're not going to choose Clemson no matter what, no matter how much money or whatever. It's just not possible for Clemson to win those battles. And I think a lot of that may be the case for those two guys that took South Carolina in 2024. Now, Josiah Thompson ended up, I think, really being a starter for them. Kam Pringle really hasn't even broken into the rotation much right now. And so that's kind of maybe why we're seeing that Pringle is moving on. And so that's where we get into the moment of Clemson fans saying, we need Kam Pringle, and I'll tell you why we don't need him. And that's right, we don't need him because, Clemson heads into the 2025 season, in my opinion, with one of the deepest and most experienced offensive line units in the ACC, possibly in the country. You have Tristan Leigh. You have possibly a rotation of Harris Sewell and Colin Sadler, who's coming back, and Ryan Linthicum at center, Walker Parks, who decided to come back, and then Blake Miller, who also decided to come back. You have big-time returners across all five positions, and four of those guys are guys that this is their last, chance to prove what they can do at the college football level, and that is rare in this world of college football, and Clemson had a couple of cycles there where we had a lot of inexperience on the offensive line, and they struggled for that. But behind them, they not only have guys that are ready, but that guys are getting, reps right now, like Elijah Thurman, Watson Young, Braden Jacobs, Rowan Byrne, other guys out there that are definitely getting some opportunities for Clemson this spring. And I think that helps Clemson be ready for 2025. And it makes it even harder for a guy like Kam Pringle to crack the rotation. Now, let's be honest. I do think not only would it be hard to get into that too deep rotation for Kam Pringle, but I also feel like that it would be hard for him to even get a start at Clemson right now. I think he struggled to break in with South Carolina. They ended up redshirting him, which is really not controversial, not difficult to understand. I mean, you see this a lot with offensive linemen. They get redshirted and they have to continue to develop. But you also see this a lot in the new age of college football where guys don't want to wait around to be developed. They don't want to, they maybe will be okay with 1 year, but if then in the following spring they're still not getting a lot of usage, then they're ready to move on. Clemson's already had that in their group with Tavoy Fagan. He redshirted, I guess kind of waited his turn, I guess you could say. And then the very first spring, he felt like he deserved an opportunity. He wasn't getting it. And so he's moving on. So it's not uncommon now in today's college football, but I don't see him coming in and making a jump ahead of the upperclassmen that Clemson have right now. To me, he's in the situation where he's already burned a red shirt. So he needs playing time. He's not probably willing to sit by unless he just truly loves Clemson and really wants to be a Clemson Tiger. I mean, if that was the case, why wouldn't he have picked Clemson from the get-go? So Clemson is not offering him a starting position, maybe not even offering him, a rotational spot. And he's out of a red shirt. So you'd be basically sitting for another year, waiting your turn. I don't think that's good for his career. I really don't think transferring out is good for most people's career, especially after they've not really shown much at all already. But it's not going to help Clemson. He's not going to be able to get into the rotation, so it's not going to help him either. Might be kind of a fan favorite move for some of you out there who want to see more in-state guys come to Clemson, or maybe a little jaded because he didn't pick Clemson from the beginning. But at Clemson, he would be kind of buried again. I could see him going somewhere where he has more opportunities. Maybe not so much a Power 5 team. Maybe a Power 5 team that just has some openings there. I've heard really from the comments more than the player, because he hasn't announced anything as far as like where he would want to go. But you could see some place like Appalachian State. You could see some place like Coastal Carolina. Maybe even a Duke, or maybe a Vanderbilt or Kentucky that could possibly take him and get him into a rotation a little bit faster. I'm assuming at this point he wants to see the field. At Clemson, I think he's just another body in a crowded room. And I'm not trying to be emotional about it, although I would love to say, hey, Clemson should land all of the in-state guys and take everything from South Carolina and steal everything from South Carolina, whether you're going to use it or not. I'd love to get a one-up on South Carolina in anything. But we've already heard also from Dabo Swinney that he likes the guys that he has. He's already mentioned that he's not interested in running through the free agent frenzy that is the second window of the transfer portal. He wants to continue to develop from within and build from within. The few portal moves that he has made already were very early, very targeted, and very calculated in areas of extreme need. I really wouldn't say at the offensive line position that Clemson is in an area of extreme need. Bringing in a guy just because of the fans is never going to be Dabo Swinney's MO. Just because of revenge on South Carolina, also never going to be on Dabo Swinney's top 10 list. That's just not how the staff operates. Pringle, I don't know culturally, would he fit or would he not? But he definitely doesn't fill any kind of needs, in my opinion. Again, if I were him, I'd look elsewhere. I'd look at Liberty, maybe Duke, Coastal, App State, Vanderbilt, Kentucky. Those types of places to me would make more sense because they need tackles. They need guys that can come in and contribute early. And it kind of hurts because you're at the end of the spring. You've had a lot of practice with one team, but now you're going to have to be restarting. The summer's going to get a little gap there for you. And then you're going to have to go hard in the fall to earn a spot. So to me, for an offensive lineman looking for more opportunity, the second window of the transfer portal is very tough. I think it's tough for really every position, but offensive line seems to me to be one of those ones that would be a difficult path to playing time. Clemson can't get it and give him that, and that's the bottom line. If we rewind the clock and we talk about why he didn't pick Clemson, in the first place and what Clemson did with that. That's what we're going to do in the next segment, is kind of look back at who did Clemson end up getting in their 2024 class, and why you as a Clemson fan and me should be excited about that. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. I get it. Clemson did lose Kam Pringle in the 2024 recruiting class, and it really did hurt for a lot of Tiger fans, including myself. You know, Clemson had him very high on the board. He was offered very early on in the process. He visited Clemson many times. He had Clemson in his final 6, and he chose South Carolina in part for proximity and early playing time, which kind of stung because, you know, it ended up being where early playing time wasn't the case anyways. It didn't stop there because it really hurt overall. I mean, 2024 was a recruiting class that offensive line wise, Clemson missed a lot, and we can admit that now looking back. But they have guys that do end up feeling like that the ones that they did get, they can trust at least for the next couple of years, and continue to develop those guys. So, but when you look at guys they missed out on in 2024, you got Josiah Thompson, South Carolina, probably their number one guy from Dillon, really, you know, already starting on South Carolina, as we mentioned. So a bad miss there, I guess, for Clemson. Daniel Calhoun went to Georgia. Michael Uini went to Georgia. Shaq McRoy went to Oregon. Fletcher Westphal, which is a guy who a lot of people really wanted, he went to Florida. Kam Pringle, as we already are talking about. Blake Frazier, a guy who went to Michigan, we really hurt as well. Another guy, Blake Franks from Greenville, which we kind of thought we would get. He went to South Carolina. That was one that stung as well. So, I could continue going down the list. They went after Egan Boyer. He left. Favor Edwin went to Auburn, and then Jamison Riggs went to Georgia Tech, and Casey Poe went to Alabama, and Jordan Seaton went with Deion Sanders and Colorado. So William Satterwhite went to Tennessee. I mean, if you look at the list of guys that Clemson missed on in the 2024 recruiting class, is probably a big reason why Thomas Austin is no longer the coach on the team, because of all the guys that he couldn't land. You know, and that they just kind of kept going through. By far had 20 overall, 20 overall offers for that class, and really, you know, missed on a ton of them. Now, the ones that they did get, you don't hate them, but they weren't nationally ranked. And so that kind of leaves you a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth. Elijah Thurman was really your best one. He was injured, but he'll be coming back this season. But the limited time he played, to be able to fit in for Tristan Leigh, he looked great. Now, he was nationally ranked 227 according to 24/7 Sports, but a 4-star guy overall, and I think a guy that we really like to see. Now, Watson Young is a legacy guy. He's a D.W. Daniel guy. You know, who knows how he'll kind of pan out, but he has, I believe, a father and a grandfather, both played for Clemson. So kind of one of those things where it makes sense to bring him in, but you never know what his ceiling will be. And he really didn't have very high of ranking. Ronan O'Connell is a guy we're hearing a ton about, and Mason Wade as well, hearing a ton about, but they weren't rated highly as either. So it is true that Clemson missed on a ton of guys in that recruiting class, and Kam Pringle being one of those guys. So going back to the question of why wouldn't you take Kam Pringle? Well, it goes back to the fit of what he needs and what Clemson needs. And right now, I think that their offensive line is shaping up to be what they need to be. And even though these guys weren't highly ranked guys, I would say look at their measurables. I mean, 6'5", 310 for Ronan O'Connell, 6'5", 290 for Mason Wade, 6'3", 263 for Elijah Thurman, but he's gotten bigger now. And then Watson Young, 6'3", 285. So these guys are all big dudes, and I think for the most part, the Clemson coaching staff rather feels as if they are very confident in their development going forward. So Clemson had to adjust. It stung in 2024, 2023 timeframe. Yeah, it definitely did. But they landed guys that they are, decently confident about their development. Now, were they top 50 guys like Kam Pringle? No. But with what comes with a top 50 type of rating comes with expectations. And obviously he hasn't met expectations at the school that he already thought that he would get early playing time and be close to home. So if he's not going to get that there, and honestly, South Carolina's offensive line to me is worse than Clemson's. So I don't see how there's any way he would come over and work out for Clemson. Now, the misses that they had, maybe they won't hurt in the long run because you have Matt Luke in now. Matt Luke's going to be able to help these guys develop at a higher pace or faster rate than they probably would with anybody else. And so these guys are going to be able to jump in and maybe contribute more and exceed expectations. And a lot of times when you get guys who aren't nationally ranked, especially in the offensive line, is extremely difficult because you don't get a lot of opportunities to see these guys. They're not, they may or may not be going at full speed in these camps or at the elite, competitions. And so these national guys kind of get a lot of groupthink, what one national guy says, then the other national guy says, and it just kind of trickles downhill. So we don't truly know. And I wouldn't write them off just because they weren't nationally ranked. Clemson added guys that they know are committed to the process, committed to the program and the university and development. And I think with Matt Luke in there, it's going to help out for sure. 2024 was not a flashy class by any means. It wasn't one of those ones where you'd walk away saying, wow, look at all the guys that they landed, because, they really didn't have that great of a class, I would say, with, 22 overall. With 22 overall commits, but their overall ranking was low, 15th in the country at the end of it for Clemson or for 24/7 Sports. But I would say when you look at the actual guys on that list, they had a lot of stars that are performing better or at expectations. You've got Sammy Brown, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco. I think we will see some Christian Bentancur. We will see Darian Mayo this year. We will see Corin Gibson. Elijah Thurman, we'll see him too. Could possibly see Noah Dixon and David Ezeomume. Heaven Brown Schuler, could possibly see him more. Champ Thompson, maybe. And then when it kind of gets down below there, you kind of have some question marks. When will we see Ronan O'Connell? We are already seeing Ashton Hampton. We know he's great, but Drew Woodaz, we might see him some, maybe. Mason Wade, are we going to see him this year? Cuba Taylor, maybe. So when you get down to it, there were a ton of guys who I think at the top of that list were big time hits. But the middle to bottom part of that group is kind of still big question marks. You haven't seen a ton of them. So you don't really know how much it's helped or hurt you, especially from the offensive line. Could it hurt long term? Maybe. I don't think that one class is really going to hurt you long term. But if you build them up year over year, when it comes to offensive linemen, you may have to go in and get a transfer portal guy. When it comes to transfer portal guys, though, my true thought is, I'd rather not get a Kam Pringle still, because you would rather go in, and if you're going to have to spend money in the transfer portal, wouldn't you rather get a guy in a position of need for sure and a guy that is going to start for you? I don't see any reason to think that Kam Pringle is actually going to start for Clemson. I don't see any reason to think that they need to spend a ton of money on this guy. And you're going to have to spend money on him. I mean, come on. That is the way college football is right now. We know that. Clemson's class, year over year, the past couple of years has been in the teens, and that's not been exciting for Clemson fans recruiting wise. But I think they are building into something special this season, and that'll keep, those guys that start to hit in those big time classes will help Clemson get back up to that elite level. And even without those guys, you're looking at development at an elite level. So I think Clemson has no regrets. I don't think they're saying what if. I don't think they're saying let me add this guy either, because Dabo Swinney mentioned that, he kind of feels good where he's at right now. Sometimes the biggest wins are the ones that you don't get. And maybe in this case, not getting Pringle is okay, because you found out that this guy really not going to want to spend a lot of time being developed, and it's about being smart with your commitments. It's about being smart with your offers so that you don't have a ton of gaps. Now, South Carolina is, losing some offensive line depth for a guy who, didn't want to wait around and continue to be developed. All right. I want to talk about one guy that I haven't talked about yet on the show, and I think that he's gotten a lot of criticism from me. But what is he going to do here in his last season with the Clemson Tigers? There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Gametime makes it fast and easy to get the playoff tickets you want, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as the tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60% off. Now, last month, I had a friend tell me about a situation where he really wanted to go to the Braves game, and he waited till the day of course, because it was sold out everywhere, except he pulled some tickets on the Gametime app, got great tickets behind the dugout, less than face value, and it was on his phone in seconds, and he had no stress at all. Now, I think his friend he took with him was kind of stressed about getting tickets, but he made it much, much easier on everybody getting it with Gametime. So they walked into the game, no problem. Last minute deals, you can save up to 60% off. Again, it's not just for sports either. It's for concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. They have available more than just sports for sure. And the all-in pricing means that there's no surprise fees at the checkout. So you see exactly what you're going to pay. You don't have to wait till the 17th click to figure out, it's going to be 10 times more expensive. No, not with Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app and create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. With Blake Miller coming back, and a lot of people felt like maybe he would, go into the NFL draft. 2024, 2025 season was his third season with Clemson, and he's not going to get a COVID year because he started in 2022, and he's really been a starter since day one. I mean, he's got 41 games played, 41 games started. So this is a guy who has consistently been a starter for Clemson, even as a true freshman at the right tackle position. And that was a big deal, I think, and that kind of adds even more to why Clemson would still ride with him instead of going out and getting anybody in the transfer portal. Because, again, it goes to the transfer portal. You're really wanting a guy you're going after a guy who wants to play immediately and deserves probably to play in many ways. Now, if at the level that Clemson is trying to go in the transfer portal, they're not always trying to get some backup guys. But I think a lot of the guys definitely want to get more playing time than they were having at their previous school. Now, with Blake Miller coming back for 2025, to me, that was massive. I criticize him a lot because I do think that he gets a little bit too much national media. I don't think that, at least when Cade Klubnik was younger, less experienced, I don't think they worked really well together. I think that in a lot of ways, I don't always feel like that Blake Miller is an all ACC right tackle. Maybe it's because the ACC doesn't have a ton of them, but in a lot of ways, I feel like sometimes he is, average to slightly above average. I wouldn't say that he's some guy that I'm going to go after in the NFL draft very early on, you know. But when you hear national media guys out there, they just seem to drool over him about how he's such the greatest right tackle Clemson has ever had almost. I don't really fully understand that, but I can understand his importance to the team and his effort and development over the years and his talent. I mean, I have to respect the talent, whether or not I think that he does that well in certain situations. I think that looking back at some of the biggest flaws or frustrations for me with Blake Miller has been the slow reaction to an outside blitzer. You know, I feel like it also was amplified because Cade Klubnik doesn't, at least when he first started, he didn't know how to step up into the pocket. So Blake would, maybe he was letting the guy win the outside. Maybe he was just losing the outside to the defender, the edge to the defender. But Cade Klubnik was making it worse by rolling out into that defender or rolling out into that direction and not stepping up instead. And so it made Blake Miller possibly look worse and made me kind of criticize a little more than deserved. But I can't deny the talent. I mean, to be able to come in and start from day one and have 41 starts, as we mentioned, and to have postseason accolades from people who definitely know football. But to me, he brings toughness, he brings consistency, he brings some trust, a lot of trust to what Clemson has on that offensive front. He's really not a returning player. He may have been a returning player 2 years ago, but he is now an anchor for Clemson's offensive line. I think he's gotten better, working well with Cade Klubnik over the past, season and a half. And his decision to come back really eliminates any question marks at right tackle and really eliminates any need to look for anybody, at that position and kind of at the other four positions too, because if he's there, then Tristan Leigh is where he's at. Then Walker Parks is where he's at, and Ryan Linthicum's where he's at, and basically your next man up after Marcus Tate is where they're at. So it really starts the solidification of the team because he came back. Walker Parks, is another guy I've criticized a ton. I think that being an interior offensive lineman, they definitely have some guys that can rotate in there too if he gets injured or has some inconsistency. But right tackle is one of those spots that you definitely want to be on the same page with your quarterback and have the most trust possible. Both tackle positions are very important in that way with being, having trust with your quarterback. So I think having Tristan Leigh, having Elijah Thurman, having Blake Miller, having now Braden Jacobs in the rotation as well, puts it to a point where a guy like Kam Pringle, who was already struggling to get playing time or get looked at in the spring, is not going to be a viable option for Clemson. I do feel like this is the best offensive line Clemson has had in, many years. I think that because of this, Clemson has the best opportunity they've had in many years to get to the national championship game. And it allows Matt Luke and the staff to kind of take a sigh of relief because they don't have to worry about the tackle position. The depth chart is kind of where it's at. It's settled in. You have Colin Sadler also able to swing in. You have Harris Sewell able as well, and those other young guys that we mentioned. So at this point, I would probably say Clemson has a pretty solid offensive line. They have a wall. They don't have any holes that I'm aware of. And they don't have any areas that need any patching up. The unit's experienced. They're extremely well coached, and they're extremely cohesive right now. Bringing in anybody to me would just cause honestly more problems with the player coming in, because the player coming in is probably not going to get any kind of looks that they're thinking about because of the rotation that Clemson has currently with their 2-3 deep. And Blake Miller's ability to be a leader on the offensive line too. It's not just snaps. It's being the veteran. That matters a ton. Starting from the team from the beginning, coming here from Ohio, being a veteran core of guys, to kind of show what it's like to be a starter at the Power 4 level and what the commitment level is needed and what kind of talent level is needed. It can make Jacobs and Thurman and some other guys look up and say, okay, this is the level that I've got to perform as well. So it adds to the culture of accountability and development. I just don't think dropping any new guys in the mix is really gonna make sense. So hopefully, the fan buzz dies down quickly for Kam Pringle, because I think the football logic behind it, Clemson is looking to win games, not win social media battles, not win rivalry battles that are arbitrary at this point. And, hey, to say we got your guy is fun. To say, hey, we took this guy from you is always great when it comes to South Carolina, but not really looking for social media clout here. I do feel like the Clemson has a great offensive line, and getting a guy like Blake Miller, as much criticism as I have given him, is still also a very good victory for Clemson, because it gives you that continuity, gives you that leadership, and it gives you a ton of protection and trust in a guy who started 41 snaps. So maybe I should not be as critical of him because of how important he plays, of a role he plays on this team. His return is just confirmation that Clemson's offensive line is going to be elite in 2025 with future stars behind them learning. I don't think there's any need to chase anything. I think I agree with Dabo Swinney here that Clemson has the guys and the roster they need to perform at the highest level. And maybe the no vacancy sign is truly up for this second transfer portal window. We've looked at Tavoy Fagan, and if that was a stressor for Clemson, based on the cornerback room, I don't think it's a stressor for Clemson. So no vacancy there. We looked at Kam Pringle and his departure from South Carolina. Clemson's not losing anybody on their end. So to me, no vacancy there either. Hey, let me know what you think about this episode. And I appreciate everyone being a part of Locked On Clemson and making it your first listen today. For your second listen, you can check out Locked On NFL Draft with Damon Parson and Keith Sanchez as your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. They'll give you the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And thanks again for being a part of this podcast. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and check us out tomorrow, where we'll continue to talk about more Clemson topics throughout the week. And as always, Tiger fans, we'll see you at the top of the hill.